Gakuin University, can give us his insight. Professor Taratani, welcome to the show. Well, as I mentioned, little is known about Russia's new leader, Vladimir Putin, and extensive checks by journalists and others have not really made it clear, have given us further insight. But could you tell us more about Vladimir Putin?
Yes, I'm going to mention 4 characteristics. He is at first very young in comparison with Elitsyn, 47 years old. And he does not smoke and rarely drink.
Not as much as Yeltsin.
Yes. And also, he is very fond of Japanese sushi for dieting. This is the first characteristic. And the second one is he is a very faithful person, not only to Elitsyn, but to all people. He is still keeping a member of Communist Party, and also he is a very deep Christian personnel. Therefore, quite an interesting point. And the third one is a very strong, macho pretended person and judo playing. And this is very impressive for simple people. And the fourth one is very calm and business-like person who has a lot of skills in controlling economic reforms and also maybe foreign policy.
He's like the Clint Eastwood of Russia at the moment, I guess. He has that image, perhaps a little shorter than Clint Eastwood. But unlike many prominent officials in Russia, Mr. Putin has not been linked in any major way to corruption. Now, this has boosted his image in the eye of the Russians, who've seen political insiders amass fortunes, while living standards for most people have plummeted. How do you see the support for Mr. Putin? Is it across the board? Obviously, with around 52% of the vote, it's fairly strong.
Mm-hmm. Quite strong. He got out maybe a strong victory with 52.5% is quite strong. If such election was doing in Japan, it's quite difficult to get above 50%. Therefore, quite strong, even if Zyuganov got around 30%. Therefore, he can do a lot of things, especially to keep strong policy toward, for example, corruptions and terrorists in Chechnya, and also mafia corruptions, braves, and so forth.
But I believe his actual popularity, or what the vote that he thought he would get, was around 55% a few weeks before the election. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people thought that the Chechnya situation actually took votes away from him. Well, why did that happen?
It was influenced slightly because Putin also, he is one child in a family. And there are a lot of one-child families in Russia. Therefore, they were sent, children were sent to Chechnya for fighting, and many of them died. According to statistics, more than 4,000 people died, and also 8,000 people, soldiers, were injured. Therefore, maybe this mothers committee of sending soldiers, something like that, were against Putin, and they didn't vote for Putin, maybe.
Is that probably because media is far more open now? I mean, remember Afghanistan? I mean, the same sort of situation, in fact, was obviously a lot worse in Afghanistan with the amount of people being killed there, Russians, and it took a long time before they came back from Afghanistan. But now with the media opening up, it was interesting to note that Putin got so much media coverage without actually campaigning. He was, around 5 hours a day on Russian television, whereas the remaining candidates received very little airtime.
Yes, 1 minute and 18 seconds only. Therefore, it's not unfair. Sure.
Well, what about the confidence of Mr. Putin? How would you say his confidence is very high right now?
Yes, his confidence in maybe stability, supported from military personnel and also KGB or security personnel. Therefore, he is going to to restore Russia again, a very strong state based on military bases. That is mean nuclear missiles orientation. And on this base, he's going to negotiate with the United States or European countries very skillfully.
He has displayed, he gets pretty upset when he's angered. I mean, he has displayed, especially over the Chechnya situation, when he believed that a lot of foreign countries were interfering with internal politics. He seems fairly logical and calm most of the time, but when he gets angry, he gets very angry. And a lot of people think that this authoritative aspect of his personality that has a lot of Stalinist appeal about it. Do you see that at all?
Yes, he also used a very disgusting word, as you know.
Yes.
When he was young, he was, how to say in Japanese, warugaki, very bad child. And really, he was a juvenile delinquency, almost. And he saw the movie Sword and Shield. And then he wanted to become espionage personnel, because this is a espionage movie, and he dropped at 14 years old, dropped at KGB office in St. Petersburg, and he asked to be a member of KGB. 14 years old, and the KGB member said to this child, you have to study for meantime and graduate. After graduation of university, then you can become a KGB. Therefore, he is a very bad child at that time.
So he's had big dreams and he's achieved them, and now he's the leader of the world's largest nation. But after the elections on Monday, Mr. Putin acknowledged that the scale of the problems facing him are very large, but he would not make any promises of quick improvements after a decade of economic and political turmoil. Now, you mentioned Chechnya and other problems. What are other major problems Mr. Putin will be facing?
Yes, other major problems is not economic field. Economy is now getting a little bit better and better. And I visited quite often. It's quite a similar phenomenon, just like in Japan or in New York. But in the case of foreign policy, Russian people are now depressed very much because Russian, during the so-called Cold War, at that time, it's a great country, just like the United States. Therefore, Putin is now trying to restore Russian country stronger and to contact with the United States. This is more maybe becoming the confidence of Russian people.
Sorry, what I'm getting out of the recent election and from a lot of the comments from people is they do want Russia to become a superpower again, but more economically than actually militarily. Now, he seems to be going, let's go militarily so we can become economically superpower.
Right. It's quite difficult to become economically. Then maybe Russia can become militarily, still has a big might, and maybe exporting a lot of military weapons to China, Iraq, and other countries. Therefore, maybe Russia is now getting a great profit if Russia become a great country next to the United States in military power.
Right. Now, Zyuganov, the Communist Party leader, Gennady Zyuganov, made a comment that he thinks that he may have a role in the new cabinet. Now, you mentioned the fact that Putin is still a member of the Communist Party. Do you see him taking on board quite a few members of the Communist Party in his cabinet? Because, with Zyuganov winning about 30%, and with that addition of perhaps communist people joining the cabinet, a lot of people feel that democratic reforms might be rolled back. Do you see that happening?
Yes, maybe Putin is going to invite even the Communist Party members people, but Zyuganov is going to refuse, maybe. Zyuganov is now getting quite angry because the election was not fair. He said he maybe got more than 40% of votes, But as a matter of fact, he got only 29% votes. Therefore, he got angry, and he's not have a keen connection with Putin's administration, maybe.
There were 1,000 impartial observers posted at ballot stations throughout Russia, mostly members of the OSCE, and they maintain nearly 95% of the cases that there was free and impartial. And of course, the Communist Party and also Yavlinsky's Yabloko are denying that. But you don't see a return of the result of the election changing. It stands as is.
If they so, even Mr. Putin is a member of the Communist Party. Therefore, almost all people in Russia still there keeping communist-oriented persons who now prefer market economics. It's quite interesting. Therefore, maybe Putin's policy is to mix socialism and maybe capitalism, and to erase mafia-oriented country.
Well, you make a good point there. What is going to come first, or what will take? I mean, is it going to be more difficult to get the mafia out of the situation, or bring in the social capitalism?
Then after, at first, he is going to introduce a very rigid discipline, regularization of law. And also he picked up already, for example, boss or president of local countries already from KGB or security concerned. And already he nominated 17 people as the head of the local countries. And they are now controlling very rigidly in these local territory. Therefore, he is maybe controlling just like Stalin or Brezhnev, maybe, and going to become a very monopolized power person.
So he's decentralizing power within.
But still, it's quite difficult to say clearly.
So it'll be interesting to see with his inauguration and May the cabinet makeup. Well, basically, internationally, his presence, or Mr. Putin becoming the new president, has been welcomed internationally, and in Japan as well. I believe our Prime Minister Obuchi and Mr. Putin spoke over the phone on Monday for 10 minutes. But between Japan and Russia, there still remains the territorial dispute. Now, with Mr. Putin in office now, will Japan-Russia relations change? How do you see that?
Yes, continuity and change. It's quite difficult to say, but if I say Russian foreign policy toward Japan is now maybe a downgrade. They are indifferent in Japanese activity, even in economic assistance to them. Maybe Russia is going to move to the United States and the European side. At first, Mr. Putin, after election, he's going to Britain, and he's not coming to Japan in this year. Maybe Mr. Obuchi, our Prime Minister, is going to Russia between somewhere Novosibirsk or Irkutsk, because former Prime Minister Hashimoto went to Krasnoyarsk. That is between Moscow and Tokyo. Therefore, Obuchi is going to and discuss a little bit northern territorial problems. But it's quite difficult to solve. Maybe he is going to bring only money to give them, $0.7 or $8 billion. Every year we are going to bring these monies to Eltsin.
The thing is that he wants to talk to him before the G8 summit in Okinawa, which is to be in July. And interestingly enough, Putin will be the first new kid on the block in that group of 8 countries. Clinton is on the way out as of November, and Mr. Obuchi's, well, we don't know where he's going, because after the Okinawa summit, that he may no longer be the leader of the country. Who knows? So why is Putin heading in the area of Europe and America as opposed to Japan? Japan is still a very large economic power, even though the economy is stagnating.
No, I don't think so. For Russia, Japan is not so important. If we don't say to returning northern territorial island, then maybe Russia is going to approach to Japan. But we always to pick up this point. And Mr. Obuchi is invited Putin before Okinawa summit. This is for his strategy to maybe to live longer in his maybe administration.
Obuchi. So it's more politicizing as
yes,
opposed
Japanese
to...
strategy.
So you don't, I mean, the deadline was supposed to be this year for a treaty to be signed.
Right.
You don't see that happening?
No, not at all. Unfortunately, but Northern Territorial Island is belong to Japan. Therefore, we have to saying always, please return this for island, just like that. If we don't say, then they believe that land belongs to them.
Yeah, so they have to be seen to be doing something. Well, Professor, thank you very much for joining us.